This is Dr. Phil and Jordan Peterson. These two people are pretty well known on the Twitch and other social media platforms. They're also both right-wing nutcases. So they had a conversation with each other not too long ago, and it went completely off the rails. I feel like it was like hard to wade through anything that they said because they were just cramming nonsensical garbage next to each other and just calling it a day. Like nothing that they said made any sense. Anyway, some of Dr. Phil's stuff was psychologically sound and interesting. So I want to listen to what they have to say. And while we do, we're going to play some Breath of the Wild 2. Tears of the Kingdom should just be in the background. Won't bother you too much while we listen. Apparently, like, Dr. Phil wrote a book where he had 10 rules for life or something. And I feel like we're jumping into it. If you feel lost, you're not the only one. These people have no structure or cohesion or sense to anything that they're saying. None. So anyway, let's start here. This is the beginning of a section right after Jordan Peterson ran an ad for Shopify. All right, let's listen. Wow, look at Jordan Peterson nodding his head like he understands a word coming out of Phil's mouth.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about your principle 10 to begin with here, well, to elaborate on what you said. The first thing you said was that you could be criticized for putting forward truths that are so obvious they don't need to be put forward. And my books have received that criticism too. And my response to that generally is sometimes what was formerly self-evident now needs to be buttressed and explained.
I agree. Everything should be explained, even if it seems self-evident. It needs to be drawn out.
And so, but I'd like to make some counter proposals to your Principle 10, just so people know what's even more self-evident.
I'm not sure what Principle 10 is yet, so.
Right. So here's some things you could do.
I think Principle 10, if I remember correctly, Principle 10 is accept that the people in your life may not be proud of you and be proud of yourself. You need to afford yourself the care and dignity of appreciating yourself for who you are and being yourself. I think, and that's sound advice. I agree with that advice, actually. That's the principle that Phil laid down.
What's even more self-evident, right? So here's some things you could do instead of abiding by your principle number 10. Treat other people as if they are the short-term means to whatever end you're pursuing in the moment. Okay, so that's what you do if you're an immature hedonist, is you look at other people and you think, not only what can I get from this person, but what can I get for this person to satisfy the whim that I've allowed to possess me this moment.
I know some YouTubers like this.
Right.
Not going to name names.
Right. And the ultimate expression of that, as you know clinically, is something like narcissistic psychopathy. Right.
Okay. What he's describing might be narcissistic psychopathy, but this YouTuber does not have narcissistic psychopathy. I just call it being a scumbag. I guess if it goes to an extreme, then it could be narcissistic psychopathy. But some people just use people to their advantage, you know.
Where every single other person is nothing but a landscape of opportunity for pleasurable and immediate self-gratification. And that's the core of truly antisocial, criminal, and predatory behavior. Or you can take another perspective that would be other than treating people with dignity and respect, and you could say, well, treat other people as if they're your pawns if you can exercise power over them.
What does this have to do with the idea that you should be proud of who you are and live with intention and be yourself, which I believe was Phil's 10th principle for life or whatever? What does this have to do with anything? What the hell is he going on about right now?
Now, both of those principles are in some ways equally self-evident. Like, if I can get what I want from you right now, why the hell shouldn't I do it? And if you're weak and stupid and I can force you into things, why shouldn't I do it? And I mean, I picked hedonism and power for a particular reason. Like, one of the things I've figured out, Dr. Phil, recently was that when the uniting principle dissolves, so when God is dead, let's say, in the Nietzschean terms, that...
What? I'm sorry, dude. I am so lost. What is he going on about right now? What are you talking about? When God is dead in the Nietzschean terms? Why don't you just use English, bro? And I understand what that is because I've already like listened to this poor fool like 16 billion times. He means when people find other meaning to live other than through God, I believe. But why doesn't he just like lay that out? Why does he have to be like confusing and nonsensical for pretty much everything that he says? Why?
What comes up immediately to supplant him is hedonism on the one side, and so that
So what Peterson is saying is, if you don't have God, you are, as he just described, basically like you act like a psychopath, an ends justify the means mentality. Hilarious coming from the far right that they would complain about, an ends justify the means mentality, but that's neither here nor there. That's what he's saying. If you don't have God, you are basically a narcissistic psychopath. Which God? Doesn't specify.
that's the pull of instinctual whim and the drive to power on the other. And those two have a dance. And so your principle 10 is you aim at, you don't treat other people like they're means to your own short-term ends, and you don't worship power.
I thought his principle 10 was appreciating yourself for who you are and being proud of yourself. Am I missing something?
Does that seem reasonable to you? And then
But everyone keeps referring to Robert Adset as Rober or Robber. On other platforms, I've seen Robert Adset, and he has a T on the end of his name on other platforms. I don't know why he doesn't on Twitch, but I think the name is Robert Adset. Anyway, I thought that was funny. Yeah, I guess we're all psychopathic hedonists.
and you don't worship power. Does that seem reasonable to you? And then you've aligned it with Rule 1 or with Principle 1, and I'll get to that in a sec. But what do you think of that take on your 10th principle?
No, I think it's a good take, but it's all
Like, I don't think it is. I don't think it's a good take at all. I don't think it makes any sense whatsoever. I don't know what you're going on about right now.
it's also not challenging everybody to be totally altruistic, if there is such a thing.
Right.
And we can talk about that probably till the cows come home. But my point is, like, I can go make a deal. You and I could make a deal. We could open a business and we could say, okay, Jordan, you're going to show up every day at 8 o'clock and you're going to close every night at 8 p.m. And we're going to be 50-50 partners. And you can be so excited about it that you say, well, yeah, okay. Well, that's not a good deal for me, because you're not going to sit still for that for very long. It may look like I made a great deal, but I didn't make a great deal, because you're going to rebel against that in a really short period of time.
Right.
Because you're going to be thinking, that was stupid. I'm doing all the work and he's getting half of the profits out of this. So it really doesn't work out.
So don't treat people in a manipulative way, is what he's saying, because it will come back to bite you. I can agree with that. Sure, absolutely.
If you exploit, manipulate, the thing is, narcissists just don't learn. You can't argue with.
There you go. You can act like a narcissist without being a narcissist. And unfortunately, whether Phil realizes this or not, I don't know, but Jordan Peterson has pushed and encouraged people to be narcissists and use them as a means to an end. He has bolstered the ideology, intentional or not, I don't know. Like, maybe it was just completely unintentional. He was just like spreading these ridiculous ideas and they happen to be picked up by people who are prone to this. Who knows? But I don't know if Phil realizes that is the point. He's correct, though. Phil is. Acting in an altruistic way is beneficial to you ultimately. And acting in a manipulative way is damaging to you. So it's better just to not be a scumbag, right?
With them, and they only see things from their point of view, so they don't learn, and they can't generalize from one situation to another. But I think most people can, and this isn't really asking for altruism. It's asking for people to say, look, do what works. And
dude, I am still like, I tried to look up that 10th thing that they're talking about right now. I cannot find it. I thought it was just be proud of your own accomplishments and who you are. But I looked on his website. I have no clue what it is.
It really works if you treat yourself and other people with dignity and respect, because now you get collaboration, and together we're better than we are separately.
Right. Well, so what you're saying is that sustainable reciprocal altruism is not stupid self-sacrifice.
Sustainable reciprocal altruism. So he's saying, why doesn't he just say it in English? Like, I don't understand. He could just use English instead of using like big words purposefully, or instead of using big words with absolutely no rhyme or reason. There's a fallacy for this, a logical fallacy. It's called, maybe it's argument by gibberish. That could be it. There is an actual term for what he's doing here. I don't remember what it is, but anyway. Reciprocal altruistic, what?
Sustainable reciprocal altruism is not...
Right. Sustainable reciprocal altruism. Okay. Why didn't he just say being altruistic toward people, everybody looking out for everyone else's best interests? Why didn't he just say that?
Not stupid self-sacrifice.
So everyone looking out for each other's best interests and helping each other out is not stupid self-sacrifice. Okay.
Right. That's basically the issue. Well, and I think you pointed to the proper rationale for that, is that if the deal you make with someone that iterates, so like a partnership or a marriage,
that iterates,
it's going to extend across some time. If it's not predicated on something like principles of universal justice, which would mean equality of worth within the relationship.
Dude, why is he doing this? I don't understand. Why are you using needlessly large words? Use normal English. You make no sense whatsoever to your audience when you do shit like this. Let's just step back, try to understand this, because it's so stupid.
Deal you make with someone that iterates, so like a partnership or a marriage.
So what does he mean by a deal with someone that iterates? That means nothing. So when you make a deal, when you marry somebody, or when you have a partnership in a business or something, go on.
It's going to extend across some time. If it's not predicated on something like principles of universal justice.
If it's not built on a common moral system. Could have just said that. When you're in a partnership with somebody and it's not built on a common moral system, when you don't have morals that like connect with each other.
Which would mean equality of worth within the relationship.
No, that's not what that would mean. That has nothing to do with it. But okay, go on.
Then all that's going to happen is it's going to devolve into a counterproductive bitterness.
Okay, so if you don't have a common moral system, when you're in a partnership with somebody, it's going to devolve into bitterness. Yes. Why did we go through all of that when you could have just said it in like 6 words?
And so if you're establishing, I'll give you an example. I set up a business enterprise with my son, and we had been working on a project, and he was
It's probably not a good idea. You shouldn't get family involved with business. Don't mix family and business.
Working at another job, but he decided that it might be worthwhile to stop doing his other job and to focus entirely on our project because he thought it had some legs. So what I suggested to him was that he go away. So he wanted to know, because we had worked on it jointly, what sort of deal I would be willing to enter into with him. I said, well, why don't you go away and come back with a proposal for me that you're really thrilled about bringing to me, that you think would also maximize my incentives.
Okay.
No, because there's a certain utility being associated with me, partly because I have a lot of marketing clout, let's say, if you want to make it just a capitalistic decision.
Sure.
So I asked him to go away and come back with a plan that would maximally motivate him while simultaneously maximally motivating me. And that's a good, like that, there's no...
Okay, so he's saying, I asked my son to go away and write a contract that's beneficial to both of us. All right. What point is he trying to get at here?
Simultaneously maximally motivating me. And that's a good, like that, there's no stupid self-sacrifice in that. And that's a great thing to bring to a marriage, for example.
Yeah, okay, sure, you're correct.
Example, my wife and I have got better.
Oh, and by the way, I don't ever want to be this close to Jordan Peterson's face. Ever. Literally ever. Please don't do this.
And that's a great thing to bring to a marriage, for example. My wife and I have got better at this in recent years, especially since our children left. Our deal now, the deal I have with her, for example, about whether or not she should accompany me on tour and how we decide to go about doing the next things we're going to do, is I've told her, and vice versa, that she doesn't have to do anything that I don't want her to do anything that she's not fully on board with. Right? Now, I could force her and compel her and manipulate her and all of that. But your point is that, well, if you do that with someone, they're going to kick back.
Yeah, you don't want to force anybody into doing something that they don't want to do. Yes, for sure. I absolutely agree with that. Because it's not beneficial to you in the end to do something like that. That's not helpful.
The relationship won't be sustainable.
How long have you been married?
34 years, but I've known my wife for 52 years.
Yeah.
We've had a friendship for 52 years. So a long time.
Yeah. That is a long time. I've been married 47 and we've been together 50 as well. So it didn't take her as long to make up her mind about me, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, that could easily be the case. So let's go through this first one and let's turn to this one. Be who
Wow, okay. Just a quick chuckle and move on. All right.
you are on purpose, right? And so that's very much akin, I would say, to your principle number 5, which is consciously choose which values deserve attention. So there's an intentionality there. Okay, so do you think you can differentiate for everyone who's watching and listening what the difference is between that kind of conscious intentionality and the exploitation of others? Because it's tricky.
I'm sorry, dude. Like, I zone out. It's a problem. I keep zoning out every time this dude talks because the things that he's saying are nonsensical garbage. Just step back with me one more time and let's really try to not zone out on this, okay?
Watching and listening, what the difference is between that kind of conscious intentionality and the exploitation of others?
I'm sorry. I don't know. I have no clue what he's trying to communicate on this one.
Because it's tricky, right? Even with this interview, I could come to this discussion with an end in mind. I could say, well, I want to leverage the fact that I have a chance to talk.
FYI, what he's talking about right now, ends justify the means. I think he's used that phrase a few times during this interview. Ends justify the means mentality is the problem with cults. That's why cults or high control religions are bad in the first place. Because they have an ends justify the means mentality, i.e., they have an end in mind, they have a plan, a goal that they want to reach. Jehovah's Witnesses, for example, they have a goal they want to reach. They want to convince everybody that whatever, right? And anything they have to do to get there is justified. They'll get there by any means necessary. Ends justify the means. That's what that saying means. And that is a deeply destructive mindset to be in. Ends justify the means. And fundamentally, it is the mindset of the Republican Party right now. And it's the mindset of Donald Trump, certainly. And more specifically, it's the mindset of Christian nationalism. Christian nationalism has an ends justify the means mentality. Because it's also, in its own way, a high control group. Christian nationalism is. So, anyway, yeah, that's what Jordan Peterson is referring to when he talks about this.
Talk to Dr. Phil. I want to leverage that to my advantage. I want to increase my viewership and listenership. I want to attract his fans. And the funny thing is, there's some of that that's actually relevant and important, because I wouldn't be doing a podcast with you if I didn't think that it would be of interest to the people that I'm already have listening, but also to attract new people.
Wow, fuck you too.
But then if I bend the interview to my narrow ends, then I'm manipulating you and using you.
Right. So he's saying you need to look at situations with mutually beneficial lens rather than looking at it through a, how can I use this person type of lens. Yeah, I agree. Because your thoughts manifest in your actions ultimately. Absolutely agree.
And it becomes, so I'm wondering how do you help people negotiate that line between developing an intentional vision and consciously choosing their values and yet serving something like a higher order good?
I'm sorry, what does that have to do with anything? This guy is just like so confusing in everything that he says, so nonsensical.
Well, I think when you look at number 5,
I don't know what number 5 is. Why are they not telling us what number 5 is?
Consciously choose which voices in your life deserve the most attention.
I kind of jumped the gun on that one. Sorry, guys. My fault. I'll try not to jump the gun anymore. If I had literally waited 3 seconds, he would have told us what number 5 was. Sorry.
Well, I think when you look at number 5, consciously choose which voices in your life deserve the most attention. What you're really focusing on here is making an informed decision, which may be part of number 1. When you be who you are on purpose, you have to decide, am I going to just pay the most attention to the loudest voice just because they're the loudest?
I was talking about this in a previous section. People give way too much weight to loud voices, way more credibility. My voice is pretty loud, right? 400,000 subbies on YouTube, on my main channel anyway. People should not give my voice more weight than anybody else because of my channel size. I think they should give my voice weight because I'm the most logical and most reasonable and most knowledgeable about any subject, but literally everybody thinks that about themselves. So, take it with a grain of salt. The point is, don't do that. Don't take people's size or influence or whatever. Don't take that into account when determining whether you should listen to what they have to say.
Is that what I've been doing? And if it is that what I want to do? And when you get to number 5, I'm going to consciously choose, which goes up to number 1, being who you are on purpose, which voices deserve the most attention in my life. And maybe it's your conversation with yourself. Maybe it's your conversation with God. Maybe it's your conversation with people outside your bubble. Maybe it's people.
What does this have to do with anything? I don't understand. Why is he even going through this list right now?
That challenge what may be a confirmation bias. You have to decide which voices you choose to make an investment in. And
make an investment in, okay.
And I used to think I've employed a lot of people in my life because I've always been entrepreneurial, and
okay.
I know at times I've employed as many as 1,000 people in collective endeavors, and I used to think, for example, that if I had 2 people sitting in front of me that were the same in everything that I could determine, and the only difference was that one had been to college and one had not, that if there were no other tiebreakers, that frankly I would tend to go with the one that had graduated from college, even if the degree was in art history or something that wasn't germane to the job I was hiring them for.
Yeah, people generally want to go with the college graduate because if they have a degree, it means that they have learned to buckle down and work within a system and get basically accomplish tasks, finish things, see it through to the end, so on and so forth. Doesn't mean the other person can't. It just means that you don't have the proof that they can right there in front of you the way that you do with a college graduate. Although, truth be told, I've hired people also. I hired a college graduate last time around, and yeah, that person wasn't great. I'm not, like, I've hired somebody even within the past, like, few weeks, and the person wasn't that great. They kind of sucked. In fact, they were awful. Just like they did the bare minimum. And I pay well. I pay $30 an hour flat for most things, more for other things. I pay at least a living wage. So it wasn't like a problem of like pay. It was just like they half-ass everything, you know? So anyway, I want people to go in with their whole ass. And usually if there's a college graduate, you can tell that they know how to whole ass something, but it's not always the case.
Art history or something that wasn't germane to the job I was hiring them for. And the reason was I knew something about that person I didn't know about the other. I knew they could sustain the pursuit of a long-term goal.
Right.
Yes.
I knew they could get along with assholes. I knew they could work as a team. I knew they could meet deadlines. I knew that there were a lot of things about them that I knew that I didn't know about this other person.
Yeah, absolutely.
That other person could as well, but I knew that about this person. I don't know that anymore. I don't know that about college graduates anymore.
Okay, well, it's not like something that you unequivocally know about a college graduate. It's not a guarantee that a college graduate is going to be able to do that anyway, or that they're going to care enough about the job to do it. There's no guarantee of that. And like I said, I don't think there's ever been a guarantee that college graduates were going to do that. It's more about motivation and care about the work than anything, I guess. But anyway, this sounds like some boomer shit right here that I'm listening to. Let me rephrase. There's nothing wrong with boomers. You know, I got a lot of boomer friends who get upset when I talk negatively about boomers. It's a mindset of being stuck in the past, being very self-centered. And many boomers aren't like that, baby boomers from the baby boomer generation. But some are. And it's kind of become like a trope. The mindset of believing that people are inferior today to what they were during their prime when they were working or whatever. Like, people don't work as hard today as they did yesterday or back then in their day. Or people just suck now when they didn't before. They just don't try hard enough. Like, it's just complete nonsense. It's fictitious garbage that he's kind of fabricated in his own head. Created this alternate reality where people are lazier or something.
Because now they don't have the attitude that it's their job to get along with the professor.
I don't know who they is. College students? Is this something you can say about every college student? Are you talking about somebody specific right now?
It's their attitude that the professor has the job to get along with them.
I have literally, I went to college. In fact, I've gone to different colleges before. I've went to multiple colleges. I've literally never in my entire life ever met somebody who believed that it was the professor's job to get along with them.
I have no idea how much their mind has been poisoned by what I've termed intellectual rot from some of these elite universities. So
intellectual rot, okay? Robert Adset says, not stuck in the past, stuck in a mythical past that never was. Yeah, there you go. That's a good way to phrase it. In fact, that's an important distinction. This fictitious, time in history that certain people within the boomer generation seem to have nostalgia for never happened. Just nonsensical, ridiculous garbage.
I used to have as kind of a tiebreaker because I knew something about a graduate I didn't know about a non-graduate is not valid anymore. So I've had...
Is just as valid today as it ever was. In fact, I might venture as far as to say it's more valid, I might venture as far as to say it's less valid today than it was all the way back then. I would challenge you by saying, I think people work harder today, or that college is more intensive today than it was all the way back then when Phil went to college back in 1947 or whatever it is. I don't have any stats to back that up, but neither does he. I see how that works. I can make any claim I want and not back it up, just like he doesn't have to back it up. You want to start making claims that we don't have to back up?
I had to change which voices I'm willing to listen to and what things I'm willing to give weight to. And so in being who I am on purpose, I've had to make adjustments as the world has changed around me.
So in this question, this principle, be who you are on purpose. So one question.
I think that was number 5, right? In Phil's list of 10 things that'll make your life better or whatever the hell.
Question that arises out of that is, well, who am I? Okay, so I'd like to propose to you that there are default answers to that question. The default answers are the immature answers we described earlier. So if you're not intentional in who you are, you end up being your instinctual whims and your drive to power. So basically, it's what a 2-year-old does. And I even mean that neurologically. It's like...
Neurologically, you are literally neurologically a 2-year-old? One more time?
End up being your instinctual whims and your drive to power. So basically, it's what a 2-year-old does. And I even mean that neurologically. It's like...
Okay, and do you have any evidence that this is like a neurological phenomenon that takes place? And what specific demographic, what group are you doing this neurological study on? And what credentials give you the right to say that? I mean, I thought he was like a clinician, like somebody who did clinical psychology. What, is he in a research professor role today? I know he was at one point, or I think he was at one point, right? But is he today? Because if not, then he doesn't have any place to make these claims without backing it up. I mean, nobody has any place to make claims without backing it up, period. He's saying they, whoever they is, are neurologically like 2-year-olds, literally.
Like, a 2-year-old isn't very mature. They aren't who they are on purpose. They're operating on instinct and whim, and they have to be socialized into the adoption of a higher order self. So you might ask yourself, if you're not your short-term desires or your short-term avoidance, your short-term wish to avoid pain, who are you, right? And that would be who you are on purpose. So you might say, well, where can you find who you are? And so I want to ask you what you think about this. There's a gospel statement that describes the nature of our relationship with divinity.
Oh, here we go. Go on.
In a very optimistic manner. And it proposes that if you knock, the door will open, and if you ask, you will receive, and if you seek, you will find. And so I've tried to make that concrete, let's say when I was operating as a behavioral therapist, when I was trying to help people discover who they were. And so...
Dude, I can't believe that this guy operated as a clinical psychologist, like as a therapist or whatever. Imagine having this guy as a therapist. Holy Christ on a cracker, dude.
One gateway to that is to ask yourself, this is in keeping with your principle 10 too, to treat yourself with dignity and respect. Imagine that you are caring for yourself as if you're valuable. Right? Give yourself the benefit of the doubt. And then ask yourself, this is part of the development of a vision, ask yourself, if you could have what you needed and wanted in a manner that would be best for you, what would that look like? And you'll get an answer to that question. You'll start to be able to develop a vision of what your life would be like if you were deeply who you are in a way that was sustainable. And then you can start doing that on purpose.
I feel like what Jordan Peterson is saying now is, logical. It makes sense. I understand what he's trying to communicate now, finally. But it's completely uninspired and meaningless. Like, is there any value to what he's saying? It's just like, it's not nonsense. It's just pointless.
Now, the reason I'm asking you that question,
Wait, was there a question in there?
Presenting those possibilities, is because the question of who you are, that's the question of identity, is begged by your first principle. You know, when people are saying now that they're
Again, I don't know the first principle, so I can't. These people are pretending to be like intellectual, intelligent, well-informed, and all that other junk, and they're just completely full of shit. Completely full of shit.
they're their sexual identity, right? That's the biggest claim in our
Oh my God, dude. Please, again, I don't want to be this close to Jordan Peterson's face literally ever. It looks like we're starting a new section here. Why your sexual identity is not who you are, quote unquote. I'm going to halt it here, but let me know what you think about this in the comments. This is just wild.